let's face it, rock and roll, it hasn't been very dangerous in a while.
Everyone knows what rock and roll is. It's a very large umbrella. It covers a whole bunch of stuff.
Could you say that the Gaga gimmick was an afterthought? You know, like she had the songs, but they said, nah, you need more.
She's definitely one that has the talent.
Yeah.
Can write, can do singing, songwriting.
We started coming out to the West Coast in the early 80s. We saw Kennedy's Black Flag, flipping all this, really nihilistic punk rock thing. Man, there's a lot of rules in this thing. You gotta wear this chain that way, and you gotta hate this particular kind of politics. It was just like all these rules, and we're like, what are these rules about? We want to make music.
Oh, yes. Sounds a bit like rock and roll, doesn't it?
10 seconds, guys.
From Mind Rocket Studio, between Ohio and Pennsylvania, covering the culture of popular music of yesterday and today. Speaking of music, you're listening to it. With your hosts, from the Raw Alternative, Rick Polo, from SYLM, Joe Sinkovich, and Lucas Gola. Here's your anchor, Jimmy Martin.
Welcome to Speaking of Music here at Mind Rocket Studio, where we cover music from Northeast Ohio to Western Pennsylvania and beyond. With us today is our panelists Rick Polo from the Raw Alternative, Joe Sinkovich from Supporting Your Local Music, and special guest in studio Shiloh Hawkins from the band Blew Through Branches. I am your anchor, Jimmy Martin. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the recent comments made by Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, as well as Marilyn Manson's claim that he coined the term grunge. And with this first episode segment, we're going to go ahead and kick off by just reading you these quotes and hear what everybody has to say about the quotes. So let's start off with what Billy Corgan had to say, as you know, vocalist from the Smashing Pumpkins. When asked if he looked up to Cobain, obviously Kurt Cobain, Corgan replied, "No, in the purest sense of the word, we were competitors. He and I were the top two scribes, and everybody else was a distant third." So, Rick, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that quote?
Oh, man. It's a very bold statement, definitely. Very much on the egotistical side. Here's a rock star who, obviously, in the 90s was very prominent rock star, especially among that alternative scene, which was still something new and fresh leading into the 90s. And yeah, him and Kurt Cobain were, at the top, but there were many other people. I mean, you can't discredit, Perry Farrell, Jane's Addiction, Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails, Eddie Vedder, Chris Cornell.
Jerry Cantrell.
Absolutely. And Michael Stipe, Anthony Kiedis. That alternative scene was so broad and it spanned so much territory. And really, I think, Nirvana became the poster child of grunge necessarily, but Kurt Cobain was very candid, said, hey, I love Sonic Youth. I love the Pixies. I love the Melvins. I love the Beatles. He recognized that. Mm. And I think Billy Corgan, unfortunately, if you've really paid attention to what's been going on with him, a lot of these 90s alternative era bands have had comebacks, some more successful than others, and the Pumpkins came back, I believe, 2007 with an album called Zeitgeist that it wasn't terrible. Mm-hmm. It was a pretty good record, but it didn't really click. So I think he's a little bitter.
Right. And maybe part of that is he's trying just to make a little splash to get attention, being arrogant like that, you think? Or was that just off the cuff?
I do think it's just how he sees himself. Mm-hmm. I mean, and especially if you look at some of the Pumpkins or listen to some of their newer releases, you can tell he's really trying to be in the cutting edge of music, but it feels insincere. It feels forced.
Yes. Right. Let me just sort of cite an example to set up this next question. I want to see if Joe has some thoughts on this. When you're at an Olympic event and you throw the javelin, the measurement is the farthest amount of distance that you can throw that javelin. They get out there with the measurement, and this guy threw 109 feet, and the next guy throws 110 feet. Well, he's the best. He throws the farthest. So with that in mind, what scale or measurement is Billy Corgan referencing when he considers him and Cobain to be, as he says, the top two scribes, and everyone else is a distant third?
Probably in meters.
In meters. he's talking about Javelin?
He's actually talking about in meters. Like, he's that much further ahead. I don't know. Like, you can't base it off of sales or just amount put out. Because, he had how many more years on Kurt Cobain? I mean, Kurt Cobain was still around. And, like, by saying he was, the same as, but saying everyone else was a distant third, he's still putting himself, one of them is in first place, and one of them still in second place. So he's still putting himself ahead, I think, because Billy Corgan is one of the most arrogant people. I mean, anything I've ever read from him or seen him in, like, he definitely has that sense of him of just everyone should be thanking him for his inputs to what he did for that era. I don't even want to say grunge music because, like, I think that there is a complete difference between what Nirvana was doing and what Smashing Pumpkins was doing. It wasn't the same style of music at all. There was a big difference there, and that whole time era had a giant amount of different genres that all kind of got put into that same movement as a grunge, like Soundgarden. Soundgarden shouldn't be into grunge, but that's where they were at. Same thing with Pearl Jam. They weren't in that, but
well, and you got to take into consideration too, grunge was, this media coined term to describe a regional scene. That's no different than them looking at, the Northeast Ohio, Western PA scene and calling it,
awesome.
Post-hardcore happy doodah. Whatever you want to, it's just...
Which I think they did toy with that title, that tag.
Isn't that band on your next fest? I thought that was
Fake Fest.
Yeah, pretty sure they're on Fake Fest this year.
Nice. So, yeah, I mean, and you make a great point. Grunge was just this media thing, and Billy Corgan's had a love-hate relationship with the media, whether he's spatting with Courtney Love or he's making outlandish statements.
But it's all putting his name out there, and he loves that. That's who doesn't?
It's worked to his advantage.
Yep.
I'm sure it's caused a stir. And I mean, hey, people are at least talking about him now. If he would have just dropped his last record and not said anything outrageous, would anyone really know he dropped a record?
I didn't. I kind of lost touch with them, I guess, over the past few albums they put out. They're Gish, Siamese Dreams, and even Melancholy. There was a few on there that after that, anything I heard from him was just the same recycled garbage. And like, if you're gonna keep on playing, you need to move forward. You can't keep playing the same stuff. Like, you need to progress as musicians. It's dumb not to, and just keep recycling the same thing over and over again. As someone that actually likes music is going to get tired of that.
It's such a subjective thing because, like, I used that little story about the Javelin contest because it's so subjective. I mean, what metrics are you using to say I'm better than so-and-so? I mean, because like Rick mentioned, he went down a whole list of contenders who were formidable in terms of grunge or alternative rock in that era. And, you can't necessarily pull from record sales. It's just such a subjective thing that are you talking about, like Joe talked about, is it the amount of albums? Is it the amount of hit songs? Because I did do some research on Billboard. Smashing Pumpkins didn't have a whole lot of Billboard play. If you look at Pearl Jam, they had 3 number 1 hits in the 90s to 1 number 1 hit by the Pumpkins. So if you're not making a gauge out of your listenership, out of the people in the public that buy your records, then what gauge are you using to say it was just me and Cobain?
And it really is that. It's him gauging it. There's no, I don't want to say proof because it's hard to prove this music is better than that music, but it's just his hearsay of, that's me. I was better. I'm the best. And, it's easy to say that about someone that's dead.
Yeah.
Because who's going to argue with him,
Absolutely.
Like, if he would have said that about Chris Cornell or about Eddie Vedder, somebody that he actually may have to have a little bit of controversy with, maybe he wouldn't have said it because he didn't say it.
I heard a story on the Jonah Ray podcast about some guy big fan of Smashing Pumpkins, and he tried to get a picture with Billy Corgan, and Billy Corgan didn't even want to take the time to take a picture with him.
Are you serious?
And that's one story, one guy. And does that mean that his song craftsmanship was subpar because he's an arrogant jack dick? I don't know.
And was he having a bad day?
Could have had a bad day.
It might have just been a shitty day for him. It was I remember when I met my biggest idol in music. He was the biggest dick I've ever met in my life. He didn't even turn around and look at me. Like, he went like this and signed something for me, and it was just like, that was enough.
Mm-hmm.
And but same thing. Like, I still respect him. His music is still amazing, but he's a jerk. Or was he having a bad day? I think he's a jerk. I've heard a lot of bad things about that guy. So.
Yeah.
It is very sad for someone who, as a musician, I am influenced by him. I love the music he made. Up to a certain point, he's really fallen off. And him doing this, it's like, oh man, one of your idols is just not what you expected it to be. And it's very disappointing as a fan. I'll always love the music he made. I had a similar problem with the band Megadeth. I loved Megadeth and I loved them because of, how against the grain they were and how rebellious they were and in what seemed like a very intelligent way. And then in recent years, Dave Mustaine is opening his mouth about people being on welfare, and it's like, man, where are you coming from?
Yeah,
you were like the voice of these people, and now you're alienating yourself from your fans. I don't know if it's just a level of stardom. Once that stardom sort of fades, like what do you do?
The entitlement stays.
Yeah, and another example, if I may bring it up real quick, is look at the singer from Creed, what he recently did.
Yeah, exactly. Good example.
Scott
Stipe.
What's that all about? Creed was that maybe turn of the millennium. They were the big radio rock band, and they had #1 hits, definitely more than Billy Corgan. And but they fell pretty hard and pretty fast. They fell just about as fast as they rose. And now he's making YouTube videos.
Crying.
Crying the blues.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
I wanted to ask Shiloh, bring her in on this. Shiloh, how much do record sales play into somebody's grade as a songwriter, or whether or not they're the top 2 grunge artists or the bottom 2?
Well, to be honest with you, I think at least in today's day and age, record sales don't hold any weight at all. Because nobody's really buying records anymore.
File sharing.
But I know that like back when the Pumpkins and Nirvana were big, record sales were a lot more prominent. But I personally don't think that holds any weight at all. Everything is relative and situational, and I think it was a very egotistical comment for him to make. And there is no way of judging that. Everybody's going to have a different opinion on who's better, and those two head to head, like these guys mentioned, they don't really make any sense anyhow because they were totally different.
Yeah. I'm a big Pearl Jam fan. I like some Smashing Pumpkins. I think Siamese Dream came out in 93, and I like a lot of that album.
Long time ago.
But I didn't wasn't it?
Yeah,
a long time ago, 1993.
Man.
But I thought that Pearl Jam 10 was a solid album that holds up today.
Yes.
And
Still
for him to
this
not
day.
even put Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam in the category with them, I think he was just off in his perspective and his opinion.
10 is definitely an album that I could still put in today, and I love almost every single song off of it.
And it goes back to a great point Joe made earlier. Cobain passed away 20 years ago. He who can speak for him?
Mm-hmm.
You can't speak for him. He didn't mention Eddie Vedder because, well, here's one thing about Pearl Jam, too. With most of these 90s alternative bands, got burned out by the late 90s, early 2000s, and a lot of them reunited in recent years and have had successful comebacks, but Pearl Jam has remained consistent. I don't think they've really released a bad album that turned any fans off, and I mean, they are a arena-sized rock band who still really holds on to their roots.
They still draw.
And I can't, they still draw, and I can't really consider them selling out, really. They did a Target commercial, which I thought was pretty lame, but they also only released that particular record only in Target was the only major retail chain, and everything else was independent music stores. So it's playing the game a little bit, but with your fans in mind, though, because they know in some areas, like take the particular area that this podcast is broadcasting out of, there aren't very many independent record chains. If you want to buy a record, you're going to have to go to Best Buy or Target or somewhere like that.
Sure,
so
FYE.
Keeping fans in mind. And yeah, Pearl Jam has been very consistent. So, I mean, he has nothing on Pearl Jam or the Red Hot Chili Peppers either.
Yeah, they haven't stopped.
That's another artist that was really hot. I mean, I still listen to Blood Sugar Sex Magic today.
Yep.
Great album.
Beautiful album.
Hey, this is Jeremy from Pearl and the Beard. And speaking of music, you're listening to it.
Let's get to our the other quote on this same topic. I'm going to read to you a little splice from an interview. I got this from the consequenceofsound.net, but this is about Marilyn Manson's claim that he coined the term grunge. It says, the topic came up during a conversation about Manson's early years in the music industry when he still worked as a journalist. When he first began writing, he hated rock and roll, explaining that it was on the cusp of grunge and a lot of bands that I used to call communist rock because everyone wanted to be like the common man with the flannel shirts and Pearl Jam and their fight against Ticketmaster and all this horse shit. That's when he made the big reveal saying, quote, Nirvana was different. That was one of the bands I covered first as a journalist, and I'm just going to go ahead and say I coined the term grunge. Why don't we start off with Joe? You want to take this one first?
Yeah, I guess. I never knew that Marilyn Manson was a journalist.
I didn't either.
Yeah, that's definitely something. Like, is there any proof of that? I mean,
He was.
No, not that he was a journalist. Like, when he was writing about Nirvana, was he? I mean, that's an easy thing to prove. Like, you could go look at what he was writing. Did he use the word grunge then?
That's true. You could research that.
I mean,
maybe.
yeah, that would totally be something that you could look up.
We should do that for a future episode.
Yeah.
There is a publication. I don't know the name of it at this time. He was writing for it in college. That's how he hooked up with Reznor from Nine Inch Nails and eventually got signed to Nothing Records.
Mm-hmm. So it's definitely something that could be researched. I mean, because that's a pretty bold statement. I mean, if you are a journalist and that's what you were writing, and if you're going to say you coined that word, then that word's obviously going to be in your first thing that you write about Nirvana, right? You're going to say these guys are a grunge band and use that word if that's the word you coined.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that really surprises me because, like, I'm 100% not a fan of anything Marilyn Manson has ever done. I don't like that kind of music. Like, I don't really care for Nine Inch Nails at all either. Like, I don't.
So fighting words.
Oh, yeah. I'll take Rick. Me and Rick have fought a few times over it. It's cool. I like Pretty Hate Machine. I thought that was, that was something that was kind of groundbreaking. It was something new that people hadn't heard before, but like it got real old real fast to me. And anything Marilyn Manson did, I just have never been a fan of. Like, I don't like bands or musicians that rely on shock value.
Yes.
Like, same reason that I hate Kiss. I think that they're terrible. More people know Kiss for the fact that they dress up and they wear the makeup than their actual music.
Okay, now you're going to be fighting two of us.
That's cool. I also hate Led Zeppelin. Let's get that out there so everybody can hate me. That's going back to the question because I was veering. I can't believe that that's actually true, that he coined that phrase. Like, I think that was more, like Rick said, something that the media invented and not so much Marilyn Manson invented for a name of the dirtiness of what it sounded like.
You have to also recognize, though, that Ozzy back in 1980, 81 bit the head off of a fake bat on stage, and you could argue that was for publicity. but he had the music to back it up.
Yes.
Or Bowie.
David
Bowie. Ziggy Stardust. I mean, that was shocking parents, a man dressing up as a woman. Bowie's got the songs to back it up.
Exactly. And that's, they're not relying on the shock value. And that's my point. Like, Marilyn Manson totally relies on the shock value of coming out on stage and bondage and whatever, like, because their music is nothing new. It's nothing good. It's, just pumped out crap to put out albums. And it's relying on that shock value, and it works. I mean, the guy's famous. I mean, he's doing it. But David Bowie, Ozzy, the stuff that they actually wrote, the music was there first. And then they put that shock value to open it up a little bit and, make a little. But, it's you shouldn't rely on that.
I'm sure Rick has a little more to say, but before we get to Rick, I wanted to sort of talk about how I like to talk about how we make the sausage of music, like the inside baseball aspects. Let me ask Shiloh this. Shiloh, when you hear the word grunge, you're a musician. You're familiar with how a guitar sounds in an amp when it's clean or when it's overdriven.
That is correct.
Distorted. You're familiar with different structures, rock and roll versus metal. What words are evoked in your mind when you hear the word grunge?
Garage.
Okay.
I mean, like band wise, when it comes to
you could follow up with like some examples, but I mean, for me, and I'll hand it right back to you. I think of a sort of sloppy and dirty guitar.
Yeah, I think like dirty, like sexy though.
Oh, sexy, dirty.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, maybe that's about it. I think
Dirty-
of
dirty
garages.
can be
I think
sexy.
about dirty and sexy.
What band came to mind when you heard the word grunge?
Well, unfortunately, most commonly, the minute I hear grunge, I think Nirvana, because that's been,
Could you argue that it also speaks to the vocal texture style of the screamy, blown out, burnt voice?
To a point, like that heavy raspiness for sure.
Yes.
Not always, but yeah, that definitely comes to mind.
Right. Like Chris Cornell would be the exception to that characteristic.
Yeah.
What about you, Rick? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Shiloh on a lot of it. As far as the sound, I think raw and primal garage rock. And you got to think in terms of the time period that grunge was coined and was starting to blow up. What was really big in rock and roll at that moment was, you had hair metal, you had Bon Jovi and Poison.
Glam rock.
Yes. And the production was very clean, very every snare drum sounded like a cannon. And that was what was in. That was what was selling. All those ballady bands. It was pop with loud guitars. Grunge kind of brought punk rock and heavy metal simultaneously back in their raw and pure forms. I mean, you could hear, I don't know, Black Flag just as much as you heard Black Sabbath in, early Soundgarden, Melvin's early Nirvana. Grunge, I think, was just something that was just raw. It was something that was new, but took from the old in the similar way that punk rock did. Only this had more tricks to kind of grab out of the bag.
Okay. All right. So we just want to remind listeners that this is being recorded at Mind Rocket Studio in West Middlesex, PA. Find us on Facebook and stay tuned for further credits. This is our pilot episode, so we're learning about this as we go, just as you are listening as you go, so to speak.
Unless you're listening backwards, then you've already heard how this finishes. And you could let us know how it finished.
Or if you're listening from The Matrix.
Or if you're listening from The Matrix. Very true.
I'm actually currently in The Matrix.
Awesome. I was wondering where that voice was coming.
They don't have Pepsi.
That's what I think I wanna say tonight. I feel it when I loosen up my mind. Can't hear you when you say this is just the way it is. And so you know, if only you could find this fine. It's right in front.
they asked us to do the leads, but like I said before, you know, I didn't want to blow these other blokes away. You know, I've been doing this a lot longer than they have. You know, I've got pipes I haven't used yet.
He could break the board.
Haven't located them yet.
He could break the board in there. You know,
Yeah,
it's an act of mercy to the engineers that he doesn't sing lead.
All right, that was a cut from our Mind Rocket Project sessions. Mr. Daniel Van Kirk and his new band, Panty Drop and Rock Brigade, formerly of Rounding Third. We want to make sure our people that listen, our humans and others from other planets, go to...
No machines.
At 9 p.m. on Sunday nights is the Homegrown Show, so we want them to go to www.933fmthewolf.com. There is a link, a little button that says Listen Live, where Viking Jim and Gary Angelo listen to the music of Northeast Ohio and I believe Western Pennsylvania. Yeah. Close enough?
Yes.
Check them out. Also, a new podcast from the members of Third Class, specifically Lee Boyle. It's the Nursery Podcast. Really, really great idea. I'm jealous of this podcast and its format. It's nostalgic, sentimental. It's interesting. It's cutting edge. Occasionally vulgar, but in the best way. Nursery Podcast, you can find that at SoundCloud. Also, Youngstown Rock Show on Fridays at Golden String Radio. And check us out on Facebook. Submit your questions. Maybe we'll debate your topic the next time on Speaking of Music. All right, taking us out of here is another Mind Rocket Project session by the band The Hawkeyes. Song's called Miracle Man. Thanks, guys.
Hi, we're the Hawkeyes. This is the Mind Rocket Project. This song's called Miracle Man.